instead of having a guest today, I decided to have a bit of a raw conversation about why investing, not only in property, but investing in yourself, is so important. Now, I do share some pretty personal stuff. I will say there, I do drop an F-bomb, so I apologize in advance. So if you're offended by swearing, just please note. I also do talk about, so a trigger warning, I talk about cancer and I talk about loved ones dying. So if there are any triggers around that, please feel free to skip this episode. But I do think it's an important episode that touches on a little bit about my personal journey and the lessons I've learned and how important it is to have some financial stability behind you in times where it's tough, not only the awesome fun goals that we all set ourselves as part of our coaching and property investing program, our mentoring program here at Positive Real Estate. So I just wanted to share this with you today. There's a number of life lessons. There's about 5 of them. So with that, I hope you enjoy and get some valuable information from this conversation that I want to have with you today. Thanks so much. Bye for now. Hey everyone, Tabitha here, Head of Coaching for Positive Real Estate. Today I actually wanted to have a little bit more of a serious conversation around investing in property and why it's so important that you stick this journey out. And sometimes property investing, you know, it gets hard and it's not always fun. And there's a ton of paperwork at times. And everything that you guys know, I'm not simplifying it. And sometimes we question why we do it. And sometimes we don't get the results we want immediately. And we think that we've done the wrong thing or we've bought a dud property. Some of my best property has been a dud property at one time or other. And a lot of investors will tell you the same thing. It's really time in the market that's the biggest thing. And for that, get started as early as you can. We know that's one of the lessons that keeps coming up in these podcasts. But today I wanted to share a couple of things. I wanted to get, at the risk of sounding, I don't know, like every internet influencer out there, I wanted to get real with you guys today. I wanted to share a couple of stories. One I used to share a lot when we used to do our property information nights live. And it's the story about how I started investing and what drove it. But today I also want to share the benefits of investing and how important they are. And I've got a big list here of some of the lessons that I've gleaned. I'm 54, about to turn 55. And, you know, I've had my share of amazing things in my life, and I've had my share of hardship. And I want to share some of that stuff today. Not to make it about me, but I think in people's stories, there are lessons. And I want you to learn some stuff from some of the stuff that I've experienced. So the first thing that I did when I was young was get married. I got married at 18. And you're probably going, oh, well, that would have been a show. And for some people it is. And other people meet the love of their lives when they're 15 or 14 and they're with them for 70 years. That wasn't to be the case for myself. When I got married at 18, it was done with a teenage brain, and it wasn't a happy or successful marriage. But I learnt a lot. I learnt an absolute ton about how to be a good partner, what a good partner looks like, and all of that kind of stuff. We went to marriage counseling that wasn't any benefit to that marriage, but it served me later on in relationships with some of the lessons and skills that I learned from the marriage counseling. I'm a massive fan of getting help. So let that be lesson one. Don't ever be afraid to ask for help. And often we think it makes us less, or I don't know, we have some shame around it, or we might think that people think that we aren't coping or that we're not good enough. But asking for help is critical to your success. And I always remember a friend saying to me, don't be one of those people that's hard to help, because people also want to help. And you do give people a gift by letting them help you, because we all know when we help someone, we feel great, right? We feel really good about ourselves. So don't deny somebody the option of feeling good about themselves for helping you. And that's genuine help, of course, not something where you feel like you then owe somebody. Yeah. So lesson one is make sure that you get help, whatever that might look like. Now, my husband at the time, my first husband, I forget to say I've had two husbands. My first husband, he actually passed away, and he passed away 5 years into the marriage. So I was 23, and he passed away without a will. And because we were young, what did we know? We didn't think about dying. And when he passed away, I found myself a single mum with a mortgage I couldn't afford, in with very little in the way of job prospects. And I thought I was going to go bankrupt on top of dealing with everything else. And it just so happened that when we'd applied for finance for our mortgage, the broker had ticked a box on that with some automatic life insurance that I didn't know that we had, that insured us for 50% of the mortgage or something. And at the time, house prices had actually gone backwards. So I was able to sell the house, clear the debt, and I was left with a small amount of money. I think it was like $40,000, which to a 23-year-old was massive. Now, I'd like to say that I'd learnt my lesson at that point, and that I thought it would be a good thing to go and invest. And my mum said, Tab, whatever you do, just don't squander it. Just go and buy another house. But I was so scared of having another debt and reeling from how was I going to look after myself and my baby, my 2-year-old. What sort of job prospects did I have? Because I'd dropped out of university, and I really felt like I'd stuffed up my life at that point. When somebody dies without a will, what happens is they freeze everything. They freeze all your accounts. And it took me 3 months to sell the house. And during those 3 months, those accounts were frozen while they did a search for, through the law society or however it works, for a will that my hubby at the time might have had. And so all my bank accounts were frozen. I had no access to cash. I didn't want to live in the house that we had, because that was where he died. And I found myself in a really tough financial position. And so lesson number 2, and I might lose track of the numbers. I should write it down while we talk. Lesson number 2 is, if you have any kind of debt, or you have children, or you have a loved one that you care about, get your wills done. Even if you think, oh, they know, we're married, it'll just automatically go to them. Or, they know what I want. My family know what I want. They'd never squabble over money. I feel like using some strong language. Just money brings out the best and the worst of people. And the last thing you want is for someone that you love and care about that is grieving to have to deal with money problems and legal problems and families fighting and accounts being frozen. Yeah. So make sure you have up-to-date wills. You can have a simple will, or if you've got businesses and you're investing, and you might look at different options. Go talk to a financial planner. My thoughts are, don't make it too complicated, but talk to a financial planner, get some good advice. Make sure you have wills. Make sure you have power of attorney. And a lesson I've learned recently is also medical power of attorney. And I didn't know there was a difference, or I hadn't thought about it. And so while I had power of attorney, I didn't have medical power of attorney. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. So it's really important, if you're going to invest, that you set yourself up properly. So have wills. Make sure your loved ones know your wishes. That certainly makes it easier. And make sure that you have access to cash in the event of a sudden death, or even in the event of a death that you know is coming, but you just haven't got around to thinking about it. Get some good quality advice. It's not being money hungry. It's not grabbing. It's not being, cutthroat. It's making sure that you are looked after, or your loved one is looked after. Loved ones are. So that experience, when I had that $40,000, I wasn't educated about money, and I frittered it away slowly over time, supporting myself, living. I was doing an apprenticeship. I think I earned $24,000 a year. And my childcare alone was $500 a month. And I was trying to pay rent. I moved in with mum and dad. They were great to have me. But that wasn't sustainable long term, or it wasn't fair on them. So I moved out. I tried to pay rent, and I went through that money. And then I had the shame of that, because mum was checking in on me, because they're investors. Don't squander that money. Have you done something sensible with that money? And I thought about putting it in shares. And by the time I got around to researching it, it was gone. So I felt appalled at myself and a failure again. And I started really beating myself up. And that was when I met my fabulous husband number two. We call him, well, he tells me to call him the best husband so far. I wish he wouldn't say that, because I just wish he was just the best husband, full stop. But so far makes it sound like I'm going to have more, and I don't really want any more. I just want him. But I met Vin, and sorry, tears, but I said I was going to be real. I met Vin, and he introduced me to self-development. And first of all, I totally poo-pooed it. I didn't even have tissues. I don't know why I was going to get real and not have tissues, because if many of you know me, I'm a crier, so forgive the tears. So when I met Vin, he introduced me to a book called The Magic of Thinking Big. And he introduced me to a whole lot of tapes of Anthony Robbins. And I was like, this stuff is just American rah-rah. It's rubbish. I was super cynical. I poo-pooed it all. And then little by little, as he listened to it, he didn't try and force me. That's very Vin. He just kept on listening to it, and I overheard some stuff. And then I realized how powerful it was. So self-development, find the right person, the right mentor, the right coach, the right book, the right podcast, whatever it is. Like, not everything's going to suit everybody. Tony Robbins doesn't gel with everybody, but there are gems. If you can separate your kind of cynical, there are gems, and there are reasons why some of these people are successful. And it's not just being good at sales. To be good at sales, you actually have to offer value. And so I'll leave it there with the self-development, but do invest in yourselves. And many of you coaching clients in positive real estate and have already invested in themselves. And for that, I say congratulations. So we started the journey of talking about investing, and we moved to Australia. We were in New Zealand, and we bought our family home, and then we started investing. Vin had started a business, and we've invested. We arrived in 1997, and we've invested since 2001 here in Australia. So 24 years, 23 years we've been investing here in Australia. And some of that investing ride has been a bit bumpy, as we know. But I'll tell you what. So many of you that are clients that come along to mentoring nights might have noticed, or you may not have, that I haven't been there since October. If you're new clients, then you might never have met me before and wondering, who's this crazy woman looking really rough around the edges and crying and delivering her life story? To what purpose? But there is a purpose, so bear with me. But if you do know me from coaching, I've been with Positive Real Estate for, I don't know, over 16 years, and coaching for all of that time on investing, and investing myself over that time. And what it has allowed Vin and I, my hubby number 2, the best husband so far, what it has allowed us is choices. So at the moment, Vin's quite sick. He's been in hospital for 4 months, and it has been and continues to be touch and go. And I have had to learn some stuff around living with uncertainty. But if I had not invested, and I had not self-developed, and I had not been part of Positive Real Estate, which pushes you to be better and to expand and to grow, because growth is one of Positive Real Estate's core values, learning, always growing, then I don't think I would have managed as well. And managing has allowed me to be there for Vin when it's been really tricky and hard and scary for him. Not only that, it has given us financial choices. And it has also meant that 99% of what is important to have set up, we have set up because we've been surrounded by people that give good financial advice. And the one thing that got past me was the medical power of attorney, which just means that doctors have to give me like if Vin is non-responsive or, not of right mind, that they have to give me all the information. They have to give him, even if he is of same mind, they have to give me that same consideration and give me the information. So it just gives you a little bit more control, because healthcare workers are amazing people. In a big hospital, sometimes you have to have hard conversations with multiple teams. And once again, having some of these conversations can be very hard, because you want the teams to support you, you want the teams to like you, you want the teams to deliver the best care for your partner or husband or loved one. And self-development and learning about coaching and learning about hard stuff, getting through investing, learning to deal with a problem with a tenant, a difficult conversation with a property manager, a client that is having a hard time and needs coaching and hard conversations around budgeting, around not overthinking. All of this stuff has come together and given me a skill set to enable me to navigate the difficult journey that I've had for the last, well, Vin has had predominantly, but I've certainly been alongside for the last 4 months. And the beautiful thing is that we have had resources. So when Vin gets to the point, I'm going to say when, because we're going to put it out there to the universe. When Vin gets to the point that there is the potential for care at home, we can afford to have him cared for at home. nursing, if he wanted to come home to die, and that has been a reality at times, then nursing, to have someone alongside me, to have him home, which is one of his biggest wishes. No one wants to die in a hospital. That has been a financial burden of maybe $10,000 plus a week. And because we have invested and because we planned in advance, we have funds to be able to allow us to do this stuff. And so investing is not always about the big goals, about having the nice car, although it's certainly nice to have, about having the holiday and flying business or first class, about, you know, maybe sometimes teaching other people in the community and all the good stuff and the fun stuff you get to do with investing. But it also gives you a safety net, and it gives you choices when times are tough. And so I wanted to have this conversation with you, a real conversation. And I haven't put on any makeup. I haven't tidied myself up. I'm a bit red-eyed. This is real. Investing gives you choices, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And the stuff that is hard gives you skills for your future self to be able to deal with hard stuff. So you have to build that muscle. If you've got a property that's not performing, it might just be time in the market. It might be that you need to have a hard conversation with your coach and say, listen, do I need to actually sell this and cop a 10K loss or a 20K loss and replace it with a better performing asset? It might be sometimes, and forgive me if this sounds hard, sometimes myself included, we can be crybabies about something that doesn't get a result immediately when we want the result, or our expectations are not in line with the market. And I say that with love because, you know, we've all had expectations which haven't always been met, and we've been frustrated and pissed off, but hang in there with your properties, because I have never met a property investor that has held a property for 20 plus years and it hasn't settled down and they haven't loved it. Some of my worst properties have been my best properties because I've just sucked it up and I've held them. And I've done a reno when I needed to, and I've managed them within an inch of their life with great property managers. But all of that has taken me time to finesse and learn. And we have wills in place. Everything is crystal clear. We have life insurance. So if Vin was to die, once again, I don't have to worry about anything. Everything is covered. We have power of attorney. We have, you know, everything at our fingertips to make the hard times easier, because you don't want the hard times to be harder. So I'm going to check my notes right now, because I did make some notes about what's important, because Vin had cancer for 11 years before he went into hospital. Forgive me if I get a bit weepy. And even though that was shit, there is always the yin and yang in life. Now, forgive me while I just dry my eyes a second, because nothing, I'm going to sniff into the microphone. Just give me 2 seconds and I'm going to wipe my nose on my sleeve. That's how real we're getting here. Because nothing bad is only bad. Well, I'm saying that in the realm of the normal everyday. I don't mean worldwide conflict and stuff like that. I mean stuff that is sad. There are always lessons, and they're, at the risk of sounding excuse my French, chocolate box. We'll put a swearing and trigger warning on this episode. Nothing is ever all bad. And what it meant for Vin and I was that we knew we had a time frame, and we knew there was a possibility. He was originally given 5 years, maybe 7 years. He did 11 before he had to have a stem cell transplant. And it meant that we were able to actually really appreciate each other, and that the small stuff, the annoying stuff, like the fact that he'd leave a wet towel on the bed, used to drive me around the bend. I couldn't give two hoots anymore. So all the noise of all the stuff that irks you dies down, and the stuff that is important rises to the top. So even though this has been a hard journey with Vin, it's also meant that I've loved hard. Yeah. And we've got everything in place to make things as straightforward and easy as they can be, if and when it comes to the time that Vin's journey's over, or Vin and my journey is over. But there's still, we won't be all doom and gloom. There's still a really good hope that it won't be, that he'll pop out the other side. But it's a rough journey for him, and he's having to pull on every resource he has mentally, right? And so, once again, what are you doing to invest in your own mental strength? It's another reason, excuse me, we're just getting totally real. It's another reason why I ultra run, because I'm a massive fan, and everyone can roll their eyes at me mentioning ultra running, but it also means that you build up skills around dealing with pain and discomfort, and you're left to your own devices, and you spin your head, and you might be out for 12 hours, 15 hours, struggling with pain and blisters and discomfort. And it teaches you stuff about yourself, about how strong you really are and what you can really put up with, and how resilient you can be. So once again, the lessons, guys, invest in yourself. Don't stay comfortable. Lesson number 3, Sam and I talk all the time. Comfort equals dying, guys. It's the dying of dreams, because when you're comfortable, you're not growing. So get uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be as uncomfortable as I am right now. And I mean that with Vin's journey. This is very uncomfortable. It is very scary. And I've done a whole heap of crying, but I am also very resilient because of the skills I've built. So get uncomfortable. Do it in small steps. It doesn't have to be massively hard stuff. You don't have to go out and run 100K first up, but practice getting uncomfortable and practice putting your hand up for help. So I'm going to check my notes because I had a whole heap of important stuff in here. Have a think about who's on your team. So in order to get through some of the challenges that I've had mentally in the last 4 months, or the last 11 years even, I've got a grief counselor helping me process grief not in a positive way, that sort of foo-foo bullshit, but in a way that doesn't mean it becomes an added trauma. I have a psychologist that I'm talking to at the moment, once again, so that I can show up and be the best person that I can be to support Vin when he needs it, because I love that man so much. I've had relationship counseling over the years, and something I'm certainly not ashamed about. I think it's really good to learn how to communicate with your partner. And sometimes we don't always, even though we know our partners really well, we don't always understand how to communicate well to them. And sometimes just a small thing can shift that and totally shift your relationship. I've had coaching and finances and wealth and financial planning and tax planning and all of that stuff. Get those people around you. And I value health. I've learned some hard lessons. Years ago, I used to be a smoker. I know. And for all of you smokers out there, there's no judgment here. Like, we all have our poisons, but we want to be around for, if we're going to spend the time investing, let's look after our health, eh? Because when you don't have it, it suddenly becomes really important. So invest in your health, your financial health, your mental health, and of course, your physical health. And then the last thing I want to ask you guys is, in light of all these lessons, where are you spending your time? Because one of the things I hear the most is, I don't have time to invest. I don't have time to do all this stuff. I don't have time to invest in myself. I've got to run the kids around to sport. I've got my own work I'm doing. I've got all this time in the car when I'm traveling. Life is busy. You have to design it. And for all of our coaches here at Positive Real Estate, one of the biggest things that I drill home, and Todd Polke, he's a coach that coaches alongside and with Positive Real Estate sometimes. He has his own business. We've known each other a very long time, both starting at Positive Real Estate. And Todd and I used to always compare our calendars. We were and are so detailed in our calendar planning. And people are like, oh, yeah, but what about spontaneity? My friends, you get to be spontaneous when you know where your free time is, and you can plan for spontaneity without guilt. Without guilt that you're missing out on kids' time, without guilt that you haven't seen, been on a date with your wife. Sorry, I'm wiping my snoz again. How bad of me. All of that stuff is super important. Are you wasting it on social media, on TV, on Netflix? And there's nothing wrong with having a guilty pleasure and having a bit of a scroll through, but give yourself some set times to do it. Be disciplined. Discipline is the most important thing. It's not motivation. Motivation, if you rely on motivation to get you through, it's not going to happen. You're going to be motivated one day, not the next day, because motivation is about feeling. Motivation is about, how do I feel about doing this today? Oh, I feel like staying in bed, or I don't feel like doing investing today. Discipline, and it's a bit of a yucky word, discipline, but I'll use it because I don't have a better one at the moment. Discipline is about doing it without thinking. So when I'm training for a big run, I don't always feel like going for a run. And I have to get in a certain amount of mileage in order to be able to make the distance that I want to run and race. So I set myself up for success by getting all my stuff ready the night before. And I roll out of bed, and I don't ask myself, do I feel like it? My alarm goes off sometimes at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm a big fan of learning to be a morning person because you get 3 extra hours that other people don't get. And I roll out of bed when my alarm goes off. I don't think about it. I grab my running gear and I put it on. And by the time I've put my running gear on, I'm awake. Hubby makes a coffee. He was making me a coffee. Now I have to make my own while he's in hospital. But Hub gets up with me and makes a coffee. He's dedicated. I call him my husband barista, best husband so far. And I go out the door and I don't think about it. Because if I ask myself, did I feel like it, or am I motivated today? It's not going to happen. So don't rely on motivation, my friends. That's lesson number 4, 5. And this investing stuff doesn't have to be overwhelming. Put aside a set amount of time, 30 minutes a day. Yeah. Or 2 hours on a weekend, or an hour on the weekend. Get up an hour early, learn about it, listen to a podcast, listen to Jason's Wealth Coffee Chats in the car, come to a mentoring night, watch a recording, talk to your coach for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be massive stuff. Yes, there are going to be times when it's going to take a bit of time when you're going through a property settlement, or where you've got a tenant that's been a pain in the butt and you have to organize some stuff. But for the most part, it's just about regular small intervals. But I want to end on this, folks, is that if you put the stuff in place and you invest in yourself and you have a team around you, then when it does get hard, and thank you for putting up with my crying and my runny nose and me wiping my nose on my sleeve and all of that stuff, when stuff does get hard, because life does happen, and I've been coaching for a long time. I've had a number of clients pass away. When life happens, you have resources and you have options, and it just means the world of difference to what you're able to do for your loved ones, and how you navigate that time, and how meaningful it can be versus purely stressful. So thank you for listening. It's probably been a long podcast, but it was a message that I've been thinking about for a long time. And well, the last 4 months. And I really wanted to share it because I think it's really important. But get your ducks in a row, invest in yourself, make sure you've got your wills and all of that stuff set up, and invest. Expect the best. Go out and do some fun stuff while you're investing, and when you've been able to enjoy your investing at the end of your investing journey. But plan for the worst. Yeah, that way you're not surprised, and that way you get the best out of the worst times, and it doesn't have to just be suffering. Awesome. So I'll end it on that note. Hope that was helpful. Thanks so much for listening, and I will be back online with the team soon. I am at Positive Real Estate. I'm working behind the scenes, but just while life's a little bit up and down with Vin, the mentoring nights are a little bit tricky, but I will be back very soon. In the meantime, you're in great hands with all of the other coaches. Karen, Lou, they're doing a fantastic job with mentoring, and I'll probably share the spotlight with them moving forward because they're just doing such a great job. So that's it from me for now. Take care. Reach out to your coach. Make sure that you put all this stuff in place, guys, because you just don't know what and when life happens. That's it for now. Take care. Bye, and happy investing.